Welcome to another edition of Flex Rental Solutions Get Schooled by Flex. Today we're going to be going over the ability to export to QuickBooks. The specific topic today will be using the QuickBooks Intuit Web Connector Kit for Windows. The way this was configured is we want this to be very flexible, just like the rest of the system. We have certain customers who are looking to take a quote or whatever they want to call their generic financial document in Flex and export that directly out to QuickBooks. We also have customers who will create quotes in Flex, generate invoices in Flex, and then want to push that invoice from Flex over to QuickBooks. All of this is very configurable in the system, and so this allows us to basically support everyone's different unique needs. So the first part of the integration process is the setup. The first thing that we'll do is I went over to my Google Chrome and did a search for Web Connector Kit. This brings up the marketplace for Intuit Web Connector Kit. When we click on that, we can download the software provided by Quicken for this process. This particular process is good for all versions of QuickBooks from 2009 or later. Also supports the Canadian editions and the UK editions. So you would download this connector file and install that on your Windows box that you're going to be doing the integration with. From there, once that's downloaded, you'll also want to go to Financials in Flex and download the QB Web Connector file. This will be the file that will connect Flex to the Web Connector Kit. So I'm going to go over to my remote desktop connection, and we've got a how-to instructional email that we'll send out once you've got it, we've enabled QuickBooks integration for your system. And you will install the Web Connector Kit and install the connector file. And once that's implemented, you will have the ability to connect to Flex Rental Solutions. You can make the setting so it automatically runs and pulls anything waiting to be exported every minute, every hour, every day. But the majority of our customers, I would say, uncheck the auto run and then just check this box right here and hit Update Selected. And so that allows them to be basically the gatekeeper for QuickBooks. So only when they want to let stuff in, this is a manual selection that will allow it to go and find anything that's waiting to be picked up. So let's go back to Flex and look at some of our settings. Once it's enabled, if you go to Financials and Accounting Integration, this is where we will configure the basic settings for the QuickBooks integration. You can have specific users who are authorized to retrieve information through the integration portal. You can have authorized groups. And then you will also select which version you're going to be connecting to, QuickBooks for Windows, or on the next release coming out very shortly, the QuickBooks Online. One of the things that we do rather differently than most companies is the ability to have the same contact be both a client and a vendor. In our industry, that happens all the time. You may have someone in town who rents gear from you when they don't have it, and you rent gear from when you don't have it. So we have the ability to have one contact have multiple resource types. Well, QuickBooks doesn't support that very easily. They want you to have two separate customers, one for a customer and one for a vendor. And so to get around this export glitch, we've got the ability to have a postfix, so a lot of companies will say, I want to add either just a star behind the name of this for the vendor and leave it blank when it's the customer, something associated like that. From there, we'll go to our accounts, and this is where you can actually map the accounts that you have built into QuickBooks to the different resource settings built into Flex. So as an example, if we go to our resource types down here, we've got a resource type called rental. And when we put that on a quote and export that quote out to QuickBooks, we can map that resource type to a specific account in QuickBooks. So if we have an account called rental income, we can put that right here. If it is a specific number sequence where it's 40-0005 and that's the account that it maps to in QuickBooks, you can map it right there. Also, to make the setup as easy as possible, if any of these resources are not currently in QuickBooks, the first time you export an invoice with that resource type, it will look for a matching resource type. If it does not match, it will automatically generate that related account in QuickBooks for you automatically. So as an example, rental income, other items that might be helpful is if you've got show expenses for quotes that you want to export to QuickBooks. Also, all these items you can give them their account names that you want them to push towards. We've also got some default settings for rental items, what you want to call a purchase account, what you want to call a default sales discount, things like that. So all these are settings of pushing either names or accounts over to QuickBooks. Under element configuration, this is where you map the different element types over to the QuickBooks resources. So if we wanted to be able to export an invoice in Flex to an invoice in QuickBooks, this is where we would select it right here. If we were going to be pushing the quote over to the invoice in Flex, that's where we would change it here to say our quote in Flex will map to an invoice in QuickBooks, etc. We've also got the ability to map specific AR accounts in to QuickBooks. So an invoice will go to a specific AR account in QuickBooks also. Finally, we've got a couple different QuickBooks settings back here, which versions you're using. If this is for QuickBooks in the US, Canada, UK, or online edition. You can have a specific sales tax name appropriate for when you export items, what that sales tax will export to. We also have the ability to export to classes, and we've got different class tracking possibilities. We have certain customers with multiple locations who decide to export to a class in QuickBooks that is related to the warehouse location. So if you wanted to track to class through warehouse, you would select yes and select location. We have other customers who use the new feature called departments, where you can have a department to classify a specific category of quote. So maybe you have a quote configured as a live event. You may have a quote department configured as a street rental, etc. So that when you export, it automatically will start to calculate the class profitability through the department that you classify it as. One other advanced feature that we have is the ability to, per group, add an addendum to the account that you're pushing towards. So if you right-click on Computers, say, and go to Inventory Group Manager, and edit the inventory group, if this is a rental item, so under Sales Account, if we want to add an addendum that this goes to our computers-rental income, it will now classify everything within that group to that very specific account. So now in QuickBooks, we can track our revenue generated to the computer-rental income account. So for each group, you can have a specific account. So again, if I want to go to Staging, Inventory Group Manager, and hit Edit Inventory Group, then we can hit Staging. With those settings configured, we have the ability to go through and through a workflow now export to QuickBooks. So here's the invoice, and this was created back in December. Nothing's been done to it, so its status right now is invoice created. We have a workflow called Export to QuickBooks that if we click this, it will go on a queue awaiting to be picked up by the QuickBooks Web Connector Kit. We also have the ability to, from our project list page, to trigger workflows also. So as an example, if I were to go to Projects and Invoices, it would bring up this page. I want to, last year, I did a filter here to search for all my invoices from last year. I can now right-click on this line item and hit Export to QuickBooks, which would also do the exact same option here. So this is really great for your accounting people if they want to go and look at all last month's invoices that have been created and export them all very quickly without having to open up each individual invoice. So I'm going to right click on this and go to Export to QuickBooks. Are you sure you want to do that? Yes. In the action, Export to QuickBooks has successfully been performed. If there are any issues related to the export, it will show you the results right here. As an example, QuickBooks will not allow us to export an invoice that has a $0 amount. It's just something that they don't allow at all. An invoice has to have a dollar value. Also, if you have an invoice without any client name, it will not allow you to export that invoice to them. So we will notify you that if your invoice doesn't have a client, it will not allow you to export that to QuickBooks. With that, what we can do here is go and look at our system settings and look at our integration bus. So right now on our accounting bus, so we've got an integration bus, we've got input queues and outputs. So right now, outputs, we've got the ability to export to Production Exchange, our inventory availability if we're integrated with them. And under the accounting, we've got the ability to export to QuickBooks. And right now, on our waiting in line, we have one item in line. So with this, let's go back to our remote desktop connection. I have this item selected. I'm going to hit the button called Update Selected. It is going to go in Query Flex Rental Solutions and pull. So we've authenticated the user, we've connected, and we're going to pull down all the pertinent information. It will also show if there are any errors. Right now, everything was successfully done. So with that, we're going to go to QuickBooks. We're going to go, I'm just going to hit Create Invoices, and let's go back previously. And these are some of the invoices that we have imported from Flex. Nothing here has been entered manually. And let's go back to I believe this was done 12/2. Oh wait, no, sorry. Can't do it by that. Let's see. Okay. So here's our invoice right here. That is the bill to client. That's the location. Here's the PO number associated with it. And here are all the different line items that we have imported with the total. Let's make a change to this invoice. And let's re-export the invoice. So let's go and say they ended up taking 2 of these lab group ins and 2 of these items and this we ended up giving them to for $100. Now what will happen when we re-export this is it will not create a duplicate. It will go and grab the initial quote or the export in QuickBooks, and it will update it, not make a duplicate item. So we are going to go back to this. Well, let's go first to the integration bus and refresh. So there's nothing waiting on QuickBooks. It's already gone out and been received. If we right click on this, we can re-export to QuickBooks. So lots of different ways that we can do that. And let's go back to QuickBooks and go. And let's see, it should have made changes. Oh, I haven't gone and gotten the changes. I apologize. So let's go back to update selected. It's going to authenticate again. Also, as a side note, there is a digital signed certificate between QuickBooks and Flex. So every time we connect using the QuickBooks integration tool, that it has the same 256-bit encryption between the Flex server and the QuickBooks integration. So not only are we secured when we go on the web and connect and work on the system, when we export that information out to QuickBooks, it is also changed. So this invoice is automatically updated with the quantities in here. One other thing that you'll notice a big difference between QuickBooks and Flex is we have what is called a time multiplier. So here we have a quantity of 2, a time rate of 2 times the day rate at 100 each for $400. So 2 times 2 times 100 equals $400. What you'll notice is QuickBooks is more geared towards individual items, not over time. So on the price each, what we do is it will automatically multiply the price each and the multiplier together. So it will take 2 times 200 equals 400, where we do 2 times 2 times 100. So we do that calculation automatically. So here is all the changes that we have exhibited in the QuickBooks system. Now, if we were to change the class notification, let's check to see if we've got classes configured in here. So we'll change the department to an installation, and we'll hit accept. So now we've added a classification to this, and we'll re-export it one more time. So that's waiting to be picked up. We'll go back to QuickBooks, to the Web Connector Kit. We'll update it one more time. And so now the classification should be repushed, and it should be reclassified to its associated class. So I hope this gives you a good explanation of the standard integration that we have with QuickBooks for your web. Again, everything is line item pushed, so it does not give you just a generic post-it note in your QuickBooks system. If the contact is not in QuickBooks, it will create that contact for you and then export that the invoice towards that newly created contact. It will create line item detail. It will show you your total tax that you can run tax information towards. So that is the tax calculated in Flex towards this invoice, and you can run a specific report in QuickBooks towards that. If you have any questions regarding the QuickBooks integration, please contact support@flexrentalsolutions.com.